Gucci Side Dish with Dr. Crystal Cliff. You were able to travel around the world and experience the food medicines from my aspect, the food medicines of these different cultures and these beautiful cultures. And I do love how each culture's food obviously arises out of the environment that they're in. But it's looking at it from the standpoint of the environment. The plants that grew in those environments grew there to be able to survive that environment. They chose to be there. They decided, this is a good place for me to be, and they evolved. And then as humans came along and we began to understand that these are the foods that will sustain us. These are the plant medicines. These are the stone medicines, and these are, the animal medicines. I love and I'm fascinated by those different cultures that evolve out of the environment that they originated in. And even though, time moves on and where we are now, that ancient knowing and connection with the land is still so relevant to the food medicine, and I imagine to the food that you create now as well. I can only imagine how powerful it must be for you to be creating food from the food that was grown on the land that you are definitely connected to, and then able to take this food and feed the people that are also on the land from the land. It's this amazing circle of connection and reconnection and relationship. Everything, at least in the medicine that I practice, is about relationship and how one thing influences the next thing. And so, I just see that over and over and over again in your story, and how all these different cultures were layering, but they were also sort of whispering to you that what is possible if you go back to where you grew up, where your soul is, where your ancestors are, where your people are walking still, and find your own food cultures and food medicines there in the dust and there in the mountains, and bring that out and create your own paradigm of food. It's just such a beautiful story. I just get such great joy when I think about all of the resurgence that you are helping bring about on the White Mountain, land. And I was watching the Netflix again today, and I'm so deeply moved by the connection to the land, and you're bringing all of these ancient seeds and these ancient things back. I think you had Anasazi beans. I mean, and those were found in archaeological dig. I mean, the connection, the energetic and spiritual connection to those beans, to those seeds in that land, having that, how those beings, I imagine this is how my mind works, having a conversation with that land and the medicine and the secrets and the vibration that land holds, and how they're whispering to each other and helping each other find that resonance, as they support one another to come in and then speak the medicine to the people that consume those food, and whisper, we call it ganyao, whisper to those individuals, here's how we heal, here's how we remember. The memory is in the land, the vibration is there, and you are of this land, and let us whisper back to you, let us speak to you who you are through this vibrational resonance. And I'm continually blown away by this story of yours. I love it. Thank you so much. So beautiful.
When you mentioned how other cultures were layering and informing and showing potential, they were also stripping away too. They were also stripping away different perspectives and paradigms. It was like it needed to be this really intense layering in my early years, and then it starts to strip away and get about simplicity.
Right.
It was really neat. When I went to Sunrise Park Resort, I was just thinking I'm going to stay here one season and go back to the city in the spring. And I ended up staying at the resort almost 9 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, because when I first started at the resort, on my first day, I walked in and saw the whole kitchen. Everybody from the dishwasher to the manager to everybody on the team, they were all White Mountain Apache or Native, all from the community where I grew up. And I didn't realize it, but that's what I was looking for my entire career. I searched all over
Mhm.
the world, and I found it right in that banged up old hotel on my res, you know. But there had to be a lot of work done. We had to change the menu, start cooking from scratch, and really kind of put on racehorse blinders to avoid any distractions because we were unlike anything else.
Right.
Um, a lot of variables at that time would really kind of take place. Number one is that up in the mountains where the ski resort is, that's our sacred mountains.
Mm.
That's where the medicine plants come from. That's where the rains come from. That's where our crown dancers come from. It's a very powerful place in our mountains there. And number two, the combination of working with an Apache or all Apache team, being confronted by staffing issues related to structural violence, lateral violence, addiction, different types of, you know, impacts. We would see people thrive and we would see people fail. And it
Mhm.
was it was an amazing time to hang on so tight and go for the ride. And while I was there, my father would pass away. He would get cancer in
Mm.
2010, and he would pass away that year. And that was a very profound turning point. And it was one of the layering elements of trauma and loss that contributed to my decision to get sober.
Mhm.
Um, because when I lost my dad, it became very apparent that I was on my own. It became very apparent that his support of me and my career and me trying to get sober all throughout my youth, that now he was gone and I had to make or break. You know, there was no
Mhm.
one really there. I mean, I had other extended family member, of course, but it was very apparent that it was time. So excuse me.
Mhm.
That was the year that I got clean. And with the clarity of sobriety, I began to hear the voices of the cultivars even more. I began to, as with the clarity of sobriety and the humility it requires, my ego was beginning to get tamed. My heart got more sensitive, and I was
Mhm.
open to other ideas because of my insecurities started to get chipped away more and more and more, right? My
Right.
defenses were less and less and less, and my heart is open to new messaging. So I'm hearing more and seeing more, and now I understand that that biopsychosocial of detox and recovery was happening right at that time. And so, you know, it's just a dynamic combination of landscape, people, time, and place. And in 2000, I would stay there when I got clean in 2011. I'm sorry. When my dad passed away in 2010, I would stay there until 2006. And in the bio, when it says established, many benchmarks, that's when I took that idea that I had in culinary school about finding others like me,
Mhm.
and I brought it back to life. And I started holding conferences at the resort. Number one, the main reason that I wanted to start gathering native chefs was to show my culinary team that I wasn't crazy. You know, like to show
It
them that
is
I wasn't
possible.
it's possible. There's other people doing it. And so bringing them to the mountains, all these other native chefs for the first time in
Mm.
2012, um, was very powerful. And
Mhm.
I started a blog called Apaches in the Kitchen at Blogspot,
I
to
love your
kind of
blog.
document. Yeah, I haven't written in years,
Mm.
but it's pretty old school. A lot has changed since then.
Yes.
I stopped writing in it because the work started getting spiritually deeper and deeper.
Mhm.
The more rooted I became, the more access I got to cultural intellectual property and ancestral knowledge. So I began to pull back from putting stuff out there.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but we would do a lot of stuff at Sunrise. A lot of networking, social media began to really grow and blow up more. And it kind of got to this point where it began to kind of plateau, and I kind of sensed it. One of the most powerful elements of what we did at Sunrise was our chef's table. And I remember when I was at Mary Elaine's at the Phoenician, my chef Brad Thompson, he had a chef's table. It was this big opulent little table tucked away in the corner, and we used to cook special menus for that table, 4, 6, 8 people. And I thought to myself, as a young line cook, I was like, I'm gonna do that someday. I'm gonna have a 5-star fancy chef's table someday when I do it. And when I finally did it, it was on this old beat up hotel on the reservation. But the
Beautiful.
articulation, the writing and the wording and the sobriety, the combination of those, and how the way my new or revitalized ethics framed my writing was really powerful, I think. And that kind of began to broadcast and grow it. So there's a lot of press from that time, big publications and whatnot, but we always stayed focused on ourselves and our team, because we're on the res. We're far away from large metropolitan areas, and we're unlike any other professional kitchens out there. So, but that experience with the combination of sobriety, loss, recovery, and cultural resurgence in that hotel with our teams sets the stage for what I do now at the Rainbow Treatment Center.
It's beautiful.